Hello everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're going to dive into a heartfelt story about Dieu, a man trying to close the painful chapter of his past, and Huyen, who stands by his side with her daughter Maya. Together, they face emotional struggles, family ties, and the difficult path of confronting Dieu's estranged wife, Tieu. From neglected gardens that mirror unsettled lives, to moments of warmth, forgiveness, and the hope of building a new home, this journey is filled with both sorrow and resilience. If you enjoy this kind of story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss the next episodes. The eggplants had grown tall in the yard, but because Dieu had been away for so long, no one had cared for them. Without his hands working the soil, they had stretched upward aimlessly, producing no fruit. Their silent neglect seemed to mirror the state of his own unsettled life. As the morning sun rose higher, I kept wondering whether Dieu had managed to borrow a motorbike for his trip. The thought lingered in me like a small unease, sitting there even as I tried to busy myself. From outside came his voice, calling warmly, "Hey dear, I'm working out here." I asked what he was doing, and he replied that he was picking loofahs. Yet just like the eggplants, the loofah vines had been abandoned for months, tangled and unruly, no longer bearing anything of value. "I've been away for too long," Dieu said with a sigh. "Of course I couldn't take care of them." I nodded, though my thoughts were elsewhere. Later that morning, he would set out to work, or perhaps to something heavier than simple labor. Later this morning, I told him gently, "You'll head out, right? I'll go to the shop and try to meet her." His voice grew steady, determined. "I want to meet her soon," he said, "to settle things quickly and cleanly." I tried to soften him with caution. "When you see her, just stay calm. Don't let anger get the better of you. Remember, she's still your wife on paper, and legally, she still has rights over this house and land." Dieu assured me not to worry. He would manage himself. The distance was long, so he planned to leave early. I asked whether he had borrowed a motorbike, but he only smiled and said he would catch a motorbike taxi. I reminded him there might not be one nearby, suggesting instead that he take a passenger van if needed. For a moment, he was silent, then admitted, almost hesitantly, "I think she already knows about us." His words hung heavily in the morning air, and I placed my hand gently over his. "Then choose your words carefully," I whispered. Just then, the sound of our daughter stirred the air. Maya's little voice called from inside, and both of us smiled instinctively. We went in together. That morning, I told Dieu that Mr. Nam's family at the start of the village had asked me to help at their shop, since Sundays were always busy. I would wash dishes, maybe even serve customers. "At least that's easier than harvesting," Dieu said warmly. Turning to Maya, I coaxed her awake, telling her to brush her teeth, wash her face, and let me tie her hair before we left. Her sleepy voice, calling, "Mommy, Uncle Dieu," made him laugh, and soon her eyes were lit with excitement when I told her she could come along with me to Mrs. Nam's shop. I promised her noodles afterward, which made her beam even brighter. Dieu patted her head and reminded her to be good while she was with me. He had important things to do. I reminded him once more to be careful on the road guided Maya to the basin to brush her teeth, and as she scrubbed, my mind turned again to the unsettled matter of Dee's meeting. I prayed silently that things would go smoothly, because even though Tieu had left years ago, the house was still legally in her name. If she were to suddenly return and find me there, everything would collapse into conflict. Perhaps it would be best, once Dee returned, to consider moving back to my old house. At least there, no ghosts from the past would come to disturb us. We set out for the shop, Maya skipping beside me. Along the way, she asked questions with the innocent curiosity only a child could hold, about horses grazing in the fields, about why they ate grass and nothing else. I explained gently, and her laughter, pure and carefree, lightened my heart. When we arrived, Mrs. Nam waved us in briskly, already busy with the morning rush. She told me to start washing dishes, and I obeyed gratefully, silently praying that the shop would remain crowded with customers so that I could continue working there with Maya by my side. Meanwhile, Dee had reached his destination. After paying the motorbike taxi, he asked the driver to return in 30 minutes. He stepped into the familiar yard, and a voice from inside called, "Who's there?" His answer was simple, almost hesitant. "Mom, it's me." His mother's surprised gasp carried warmth and a touch of longing. "Dee, son, why didn't you say you were coming?" she asked, bustling toward him. He apologized. It had been sudden, he said. Something important had brought him back. His father, hearing the commotion, asked who had come. When told it was Dee, he emerged slowly from the inner room, his voice warm but weary. Dee greeted him respectfully, apologizing for the long absence. He explained he'd been busy with work and that the distance had made visits difficult. His father's eyes, however, carried another truth. "You know why you stopped coming," he said, "because Tieu left." Day lowered his gaze. He admitted it was true. When she had gone astray, chasing another life, he had avoided returning, too wounded to face the reminders. His mother's voice trembled with sorrow. They had always treated him like their own son, she said. If there had been failure, it was her daughter's. On Tieu's behalf, she asked for his forgiveness, but Day shook his head, insisting he held no blame toward her. People had their own fates, he said softly, and perhaps he and Tieu had simply not been meant to walk together. His father, however, was less forgiving. He spoke bluntly of how Tieu had abandoned a good husband for money and another man, how that betrayal had scarred his son. But Day's purpose was not to reopen wounds. He had returned for closure. He told them plainly that he needed to meet Tieu and finalize the divorce, not only to free himself, but to free her as well. His mother revealed that Tieu had come by recently, leaving a letter asking to end things officially. She was not home now, but had left a new phone number in case Day ever returned looking for her. Hearing this, Dee's face softened, relief flickering in his eyes. He told them he had already found someone who truly matched him, but he could not begin anew until the past was laid to rest. His parents encouraged him, telling him it was time to close this chapter and build a real future. With quiet gratitude, he accepted the phone number, holding it carefully in his hands as though it were the final key to unlocking his freedom. At that moment, Maya's cheerful little voice rang out from the shop, breaking the rhythm of clattering dishes. Mom, I want to help wash the dishes too, she chirped, with such innocence that it made Huyen smile instantly. Huyen bent down toward her, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. Maya, let Mommy do the dishes. You go inside, sweetheart. It's messy work. She pouted playfully, but obeyed, her small feet pattering across the tiled floor. Far away, at Dee's parents' house, the atmosphere carried a heaviness that no breeze could lift. His father looked at him long and hard, then sighed deeply, the weight of many years in his voice. Son, I can see how much you've suffered because of Tieu. You need to settle this once and for all. She's still my daughter, but I'll admit, we failed her. We couldn't raise her right. As parents, we feel so helpless. Dee's voice softened. Thank you, Mom, Dad, for understanding me. Now let me try calling her. He took out the number his mother had given him, his fingers trembling slightly as he dialed. On the other end, a voice answered, cold and distant. Hello, who is this? It's me, Dee, he replied steadily. I came home to find you, but you weren't there. Her response was sharp, almost accusatory. I came by the other day but couldn't find you. I left a letter with the neighbors. If you got it, you already know what I wrote. Her words pierced him, but he forced himself to remain calm. He had expected no warmth, but the reality still stung. I know you've been with another woman for some time now, she continued bluntly. So I won't make things difficult for you. I'll give you your freedom. If you want to marry her, fine, but only if the property is divided. That's the only way I'll sign the divorce papers. Dee inhaled slowly, as though to steady his heart. Then let's agree on that. Please finish what you need to do and come back soon so we can finalize this. I still have work, Tieu said curtly. I can't return just yet. You should start preparing to sell the house. Do whatever you need to do, as long as we finalize the divorce. All right, Dee said firmly, his voice carrying the weight of finality. I'll wait, but once you're done, please return quickly. When the call ended, silence filled the room. His mother shook her head, her expression a mixture of disbelief and sorrow. So she came back just to demand her share of the property? Yes, Mom, Dee admitted, his voice low. She agreed to divorce, but only if we divide the assets. His father's face hardened with anger. This woman, shameless. She left you for another man years ago, and now she returns demanding property. To me, the house no longer matters, Dee said quietly. What I need is freedom. I want this divorce finalized so I can move forward with my own marriage. His mother placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. She comes and goes as she pleases, son. We can't stop her. But please, no matter what happens, be understanding of us. We feel guilty for everything. Dee bowed his head. Mom, Dad, don't blame yourselves. This fate was broken long ago. We can't change it now. I should head back. It's getting late. His mother urged him to stay for a meal, but he declined gently. The motorbike taxi was already waiting. Before leaving, he turned back to them, his eyes soft. Although she and I are no longer husband and wife, I will always consider you my in-laws. Please don't worry. When I can, I'll come back to visit again. His mother's eyes glistened. To me, you'll always be like one of our children. But Dee had to go. He stepped out of the house, his heart heavy but strangely freer than before. That evening, when Huyen returned from work with Maya, the warm smell of dinner greeted her at the door. Surprised, she asked, "You're home early today." "Yes," Day said, with a faint smile. "I came back and cooked dinner already." Maya clapped her hands with excitement. "Uncle D, did you cook my favorite?" "Yes, sweetheart," he chuckled. "I made your favorite meat dish, and Mommy's favorite soup too." They sat down together, the three of them, and after the long day, the warm broth refreshed both body and spirit. Huyen praised Maya for helping her so much that day, and the little girl giggled proudly, announcing her dream. "Uncle D, one day I want to open a faux restaurant so Mommy Huyen can be the boss." D laughed, his eyes softening with affection. "Uncle knows. I'll work hard to make money so Mommy Huyen can open that faux shop." But as the laughter faded, his tone shifted. "I went to her house today," he began quietly, "but she wasn't there. She's gone far away for work. I managed to call her. She said it'll take at least a month for her to return. And she knows about us now. I told her that you and I are planning marriage. She agreed to divorce, but demanded property division." He paused, his gaze steady. "Honestly, I think this might benefit us." I agreed right away. But the truth is, this house still belongs to her legally. Tomorrow, I'll clean up your old house. We'll move back there. That's safer. Huyen met his eyes, relief mingling with sadness. "I was just thinking the same. This house never felt like ours. Moving back to my old house is the right choice. We can repair it, restore it. Then when she returns, you can finalize the divorce. Afterward, we'll sell this house and give her the share she wants." His voice softened with guilt. "I feel sorry, bringing you and Maya here, only to face this mess." Huyen reached for his hand firmly. "Don't. When I chose to be with you, I had already thought of everything. Just being here, together, is enough for me." A faint smile returned to his lips. "That land where your house is, it only floods during major storms. If we raise the house a little, it could be beautiful. The soil is good, perfect for planting. And with the river nearby, we could raise chickens and ducks too." She nodded eagerly. "As for this house, let's settle everything peacefully. We'll build our life with our own hands. We won't give up." His gaze lingered on Huyen, filled with emotion. "I only worry that you and Maya might feel deprived." "Day," Huyen said softly, "when I chose you, I accepted everything. Don't worry, as long as we're together, it's enough." The room grew warm, not only from the food, but from the quiet flame of hope that seemed to rise between them. "Tomorrow," he promised, "we'll go see your old house. Fix it up, make it proper, then wait for her return to end things once and for all." Huyen smiled, feeling lighter than she had in days. "The most important thing is, we're healthy and together." Maya chimed in happily. "Uncle D's cooking is delicious today." He laughed heartily. "As long as I'm healthy, I'll always cook for you and Maya." That night, their hearts carried less burden. Tomorrow would bring challenges, yes, but also the promise of a new beginning. Day returns home after years of silence, burdened by memories of his wife Tieu, who had abandoned him. With Huyen and her daughter Maya by his side, he longs to finalize the divorce and start fresh. The
Từ
neglected
kỳ một
garden
cô gái trẻ
reflects
bị
his
thương
unsettled
được một cặp
life,
vợ chồng già
but
sống
small
lơ
joys
trong
with
rừng
Maya give him
mưu mang.
strength.
Dù không
At
nói
his
được,
parents'
cô
house,
vẫn dần tìm thấy
emotions
sự
run
yên bình
deep.
trong căn nhà mộc
His
mạc
mother
nặng nề ấy.
sorrowful,
Nhưng
his
sự
father
yên ổn
bitter,
chẳng kéo dài bao
yet
nhiêu.
both supportive.
Một đêm, họ
When
tiếng
Dee
chuông điện
finally
thoại
contacts Tieu, she
vang lên phá
coldly
vỡ bầu không
demands a
khí
division of
tĩnh mịch,
property
và cô
before
nhận ra
agreeing
rằng
to
ai
the
đó
divorce.
từ quá khứ kinh hoàng của mình
Though
vẫn đang
hurt,
theo dõi cô,
Day
gần
accepts,
hơn cô từng nghĩ.
realizing freedom
Một người đàn
matters
ông bí
more
ẩn xuất hiện
than
trước
material
cửa, ánh mắt
possessions.
lạ lùng
That evening,
của hắn
he
khiến
shares
cô
a
run lẩy
tender
bẩy
dinner
tận đáy lòng.
with Huyen
Nhưng
and
bên trong
Maya,
cô, điều gì đó bắt
where
đầu
they
thay đổi.
decide to
Cô
move
không
back
còn
to
là cô gái
Huyen's
yếu
old
đuối.
house
Từ
and
khi bắt
begin
đầu lột
anew.
xác, cô cảm nhận từng cơn
Despite
bão chưa
challenges
hề tan.
ahead, they
Và
choose
mới chỉ
love,
quay trở lại,
hope,
và lần này
and
cô sẽ không
resilience
gục ngã.
as the
Nơi
foundation
từng là
of
chốn
their
chữa
future
lành giờ
together.
hóa thành chiến